Good morning, everybody. This is Pamela checking in on a video vlog, chat, speakeasy. I know it's been a hell of a long time on this secondary channel, but I hope you all are watching the latest coverage of the January 6th committee over the last couple of weeks. And a lot of it has been very eye-opening, especially in terms of the after effects of some of the people that have lived through that. I hope you guys have been DVRing some of the coverage, especially on CNN or PBS, wherever you get your news. Because what happened on January 6th should never be allowed to happen again. Especially when you have what is considered to be fellow Americans storming the Capitol because their president lost. And I think what happened that day is the saddest day in my current history. Apparently, Donald Trump wants to put authoritarianism ahead for this country. And that is something I don't ever want to see. Because we came too damn close to losing our democracy. Do you understand? We are fast losing our rights if you want to take a look at it. They're talking about banning abortions for women, no LGBTQ type of stuff. Don't teach Black history in classrooms. Why not? This country was built on the backs of Black America and Chinese America. Remember that. But, the attacks on January 6th caused extensive damage to people that do the counting of the votes, people that volunteer to help with the voting. There was one lady, they called her Lady Ruby, that got on nationwide TV yesterday in a deposition stating how the president is supposed to look out for everybody, not target them. That means he's got to look out for you, me, the guy down the street, whether you're white, red, black, brown, purple, yellow, gay, straight, bi, tri, whatever. Ugh. I just can't believe how there are some people in the Trump camp that will never step up to the plate and defend the actual oath that they had been sworn to do in the beginning of their political career. That means upholding the values of the Constitution. That's what this country was founded on. We hold these truths to be self-evident. Apparently, Trump never got the memo, but then again, Trump is too stupid to even take any notice in history class. The people that stormed the Capitol that day were not only out to get Mike Pence and Nancy Pelosi. I think they would have killed anybody that they got their dirty mitts on. And they said, due to the time of the first session of the committee, they said over 800 plus people were arrested. The shaman got over 40 months in prison. So, yeah. But they had Lady Ruby and her daughter on TV yesterday, and how their lives have been dramatically changed because of that. The daughter says she don't like going to the store anymore. Because let's say they go to a grocery store like Kroger, or if Big Bear was still around, they go to a place like Kroger or Big Bear, and the mom wants to yell for the daughter in the next aisle. The daughter is afraid that if mom says her name, people would attack her. And it's really sad that Trump can't accept the fact that he lost the election. The election was more than fair. I voted. I voted for the right person at that time, and it certainly was not Trump. Too many people could have lost their lives. Not just the day of the attack, but the people that ran the voting and stuff like that had their lives threatened. and I think it was Trump who posted the personal information of some of these officials online, and people were being threatened. I know one person said that they were going through a lot. One member of the family was sick, another one had died, and now they're getting all these text messages and death threats. We are talking about massive death threats here. I'm going to be going over to a channel here after I do this video. It's called the Midas Touch, where they break down everything on the current situation that's going on with these committees. I know there's going to be another committee session tomorrow, which I'm kind of glad for that, because this morning I had lost power for a good 2 hours. We didn't know whether it was a rolling blackout or not because it's been hot here. But I'm hoping tomorrow we keep the power on so I can continue DVRing and chronicling everything. And I hope to put together a more comprehensive video so that you guys could understand. Maybe I'll go through CNN or some other sources. But we really need to look inside of who we elect. Are they running for the right reasons? Do they have mental conditions? Do they have ill-gotten gains in mind? I just think what happened on January 6th should never have happened. Let's see what they're saying here on one of these networks here. Let me go to Facebook and see what they're saying. And then we'll go to Yahoo. So, yeah, you're going to have to forgive me because the internet is not working very well. Let's see. Let's see. Coach D calls out Marjorie Taylor Greene for defending January 6th insurrectionists. But we're not going to go into that. Marjorie Taylor Greene is a fucked up individual. She is just really fucked up. Let's see here. Let's see what they're saying. Total sickos. Texas Paul reacts to despicable Texas GOP flat platform. Let's see what else they're saying here. And speaking of Stephen Colbert, I heard that some of his people wound up in the Capitol. So I don't know if that's true or not. I'm not going to say anything on it. Let's go to Yahoo. I can't get any news here. So, yeah, let me see here. Yahoo. Let's see what they're saying on the headlines here. Let's see. In terms of the Capitol. Shit. Baltimore attorney Kevin Ravenall sentenced to nearly 5 years in prison for money laundering conviction. Wow. Let's see. House Select Committee obtains new Trump documentary footage. Let's see. I hope this don't have no sound on it because I want to be able to read this. This comes off a... Let's scroll down here. New footage of former President Donald Trump and his inner circle taken an oath before and after the January 6, 2021, is now in the possession of the House Committee investigating the deadly attack on the Capitol. So, yeah. Apparently, they're still getting new information in all the time. That's all it says. Because we all know about the phone calls that Trump has been making. Find me so many votes. Find me so many votes. It's not right. It's not correct. Dominion voting machines are fucked up. No. I think the voting system worked right. It was just. It was fair. They counted, and recounted. And the numbers don't lie. Biden beat your ass. You need to learn how to move on, Mr. Trump, but you never will. But because of that, let's see, Brian Sicknick was murdered on the Capitol that day. And after this all happened, some other members of the Capitol Police had committed suicide. Yeah, I know. The Uvalde situation was as fucked up can be. Let's talk about that. I want to talk about that a little bit more. But before I do that, if you're home tomorrow and if you have power at your house, please watch these hearings. This is too important to not miss, okay? You can't miss any day. And if you missed day 1 through 4, you can watch it on this platform or some other platforms where you get your news. I follow a channel called the Midas Touch, and I follow CNN and PBS NewsHour. But I follow Midas Touch because we talk about it and we digest it and we let our frustrations out. But I will say one thing. If the Justice Department doesn't prosecute Trump and his bitches, this country is doomed. I'm telling you. We're slowly losing our rights here. You know, women's rights are being affected. The gay community's rights are being affected. Disabled community is affected. Elderly people are going to be affected. They were talking about ripping away Social Security. They're talking about ripping away other things that people need. Trump's lies are being exposed. And I think about Miss Ruby and her daughter having ferocious attacks being labeled on them. They're just doing their job, helping the people count the votes. They're trying to take away our fucking right to vote. You know, and I voted for the first time in 2020 because I saw what Trump did to this country. I was one of those dumb ones for many years that let the other people do the vote because I didn't think my vote counted. Okay? But after what I saw, what Trump did, from the very beginning, from his Pussygate tape to find the votes, and Mike Pillow being at the Capitol just days before Trump was to leave. He wants to implement authoritarianism where we have no fucking rights. And I think what the House and the Senate and everybody on that hill should do away with is not prosecuting a president while in office. If you're doing crime while you're in office, you need to be brought up on charges and prosecuted. And that's all I'm going to say on that shit. Okay, now on to the Uvalde school system at Robb Elementary. I hear a lot of stuff has come out over the last several days. I hear that there were policemen there with body shields and everything, and that the classroom door was not locked. Those guys could have gone in there and helped save those kids. But no, those policemen waited a fucking hour before they went in there to neutralize the shooter. And, you know, and they said one full class was shot dead that day. Let that sink in. You know, kids have enough to deal with COVID and bullying in schools, and now we have to arm our teachers. That is not going to solve the problem. What the hell has gone wrong with this country? You know, it's not just in Uvalde. We are having problems all over this country. I hear about a shooting on a place called the Hilltop in Columbus, Ohio. I heard about a guy, an expected father, being shot dead at one of the malls here in my city of Columbus. I think it was Total Mall. You know, there is a hell of a problem here. If it's not the guns, then who's the problem? The people who smuggle in the guns? That's one problem. Then you have people who steal guns from family members to do their dirty work. You know, and people are calling for that police officer to be let go, the head man that was supposed to oversee what was happening in Uvalde. They want his ass fired. They even said on a news piece before my power went out this morning, get that guy off the staff. Get him out of our lives. Parents are mad, and they have every right to be, because their children were in danger of being slaughtered like cattle. Again, if Trump was in office, he'd probably say collateral damage. They don't mean nothing. Not to Trump. You know, Biden went down there to the school, paid his respects, and he's doing everything he can to put more harsher restrictions on guns. They need to go after these loopholes that are in this thing they call the Brady Bill. Again, kids cannot drink until they're 21, yet they can go around their 18th birthday, buy a weapon, and use it to shoot up a elementary school. Not to mention he tried to kill his grandmother. I don't know if she's alive or how she's doing. If anybody has any information on that, please let me know. But I have never seen a world get so fucked up in my 51 years. Back when I went to school, we didn't have these problems of people carrying guns into school. We had to deal with some smart-ass students in class. Some people had to deal with nasty teachers, but never in all my years of going to school did we have to deal with people with guns. But I think the beginning of it was starting to happen when I left high school, graduated high school in 1990. There was like a big shift from what I can remember. And before my one teacher retired in the OH class, she said she had to go through several lockdowns in her last years as a teacher. You know, and things have changed markedly in over 30 years. You know, and we need to stop what is fueling the people's need to use guns to get even or cause problems. You know, and it's sad because even though I'm not in school anymore, I have a sister that goes to work, I have a brother-in-law that goes to work, and I have a niece with autism. She cannot speak for herself. I think she'll be 16 this coming winter. So, yeah. She can't drive. She'll never live on her own. And she wears adult diapers. Because, you know, when you have autism, it's kind of hard to get them to do some things like other people would. If you have to go to the bathroom, you go to the bathroom. And I love my niece very much, and it would kill me if something were to happen to her. She's not my daughter, but she's close enough to a daughter to me. You know, and kids should not have to worry about getting shot. They're already carrying bulletproof backpacks. You know, and even if the kids had cell phones, it didn't help them that day in Uvalde. They went to school to have class parties those last days of school. You know, you get to watch a movie, you get to hang out with your friends. Sometimes other teachers will allow you to skip classes for the day and spend it in your actual homeroom. I know I've done that one year in high school. I was supposed to have choir class, but I said, do you think I could skip class today and go to my homeroom and watch a movie before Christmas? And he was cool with it because I didn't go to school to make trouble. I was a good student. I was there almost every day. But now kids have to worry about getting shot. A lot of parents are worried, oh, I'll send my kids to school, but I fear they may not come home. And it's not just that. It's just like a big giant clusterfuck. I hope they get to the bottom of the Uvalde disaster because no child should have to fear going to school. I heard about one little girl that survived that incident that doesn't sleep with the doors closed. She doesn't go out anywhere. She's absolutely terrified. And the one girl that sloshed her body in her best friend's blood said she fears it could happen again. And she has every right to be scared. She's 10 years old. She's not stupid. Kids aren't stupid. And the worst thing about that is the parents that went down there that day, they wanted to rescue their own kids. When the police wouldn't go in there, they said, well, give me a gun. I'll go in there and rescue my kids. And yet some of the cops that had their kids in there were able to go in there and get their children out. That's all well and good for them. But I think about the one cop who lost his daughter. Oh, the one that was covered in blood was covered in the blood of the officer's daughter that didn't make it. And they said one entire class was wiped out in Uvalde, Texas. And it makes me sad. It makes me sad because one of them was looking forward to going to middle school. Another one was looking forward to getting through school so she could go to college. Man, what the fuck is going on? People getting shot in movie theaters, malls. When people call me a pussy because I don't have a gun, I have my reasons. I have a disability. I don't know how the blowback would affect me. I don't want to have to shoot anybody. I wouldn't want to kill anybody. People call me a pussy because I don't have a gun, but I have my reasons for not owning one. So don't tussle with me on that. Too many people are dying at the hands of idiots with guns. Especially that punk-ass 18-year-old that went into a school where 9 and 10-year-olds and even younger were in their classes doing things that they needed to do to finish out the year. Even if it's just watching a silly movie on TV and spending their last days with their friends. Because let me tell you, if you have if you have students that you don't connect with any other time of the year, sometimes that's where all your friends are. Because a lot of kids I went to school with had disabilities and they couldn't come over to my house. I went over to their house once in a great while, but not all the time. So I feel bad for all those little kids that went to school that day and didn't get to come home. But I hope the police down there do their jobs and fire those that didn't follow through with their protocol. I guess they didn't learn anything from Columbine, did they? They didn't learn anything from Pulse nightclub. We just passed the anniversary of that not too long ago. And I think about the one young man that kept talking about his friends Drew and Juan. And they talked to one lady who was trying to get her friends out, and she was more worried about them than herself. She goes, no, you take them. She cannot move. She cannot walk. And yet they were in there at Pulse from like 12:30 to 4 o'clock in the morning. And finally, the police decided to put some C4 on the outer wall and blow a hole in the wall. And that shooter was in the bathroom where those ladies were. And a few of the gentlemen in there that were hiding in the bathroom stall. But when the shooter came in, they were trying to help somebody and knocked the 2 guys off the toilet seat. And the one guy said he had his back exposed. And he says, I thought my back was going to be riddled with bullets, but he didn't. So when they got in there and tried to engage the shooter, you could hear the gas. You could hear all the shooting going on, and it killed the shooter. And the young man that I talked about, that talked about his friends Drew and Juan, they both died. Drew and Juan both died, along with 47 other people. You know, all because the guy didn't like gays, probably. You know, and that's sad. You know, from what I heard about the Pulse nightclub, it was always welcome to anybody who wanted to come in. It didn't matter whether you were gay, straight, bi, tri. Didn't matter. You know, it's like somebody coming into your house and just ripping it up. And that's what it was like in Uvalde. Remember? Kids go to school. They have, you know, kids that go to school, sometimes that's the only time they get their meal during the day. A lot of them don't have it so good when they go to public school. You know, that's where they have all their friends. That's where they're supposed to have their sanctuary. They're supposed to feel safe. But they can't feel safe when you have policemen that fail. You know, they learn all the safety protocols. Lights off and hide, you know, they hide under a desk or they hide in some other type of room. Get as many walls between you and the shooter as you can. I've watched all that on that America Under Fire that was on Cinemax, and I own that series, so be sure to check that one out. Because we have a problem here. We have a major problem. You know, and they say, let me look up the Uvalde shooting here and see what they're saying about that. Uvalde shooting update. Okay. Oh, here we go. From KUVE on ABC. It says first interior image released in Uvalde school shooting shows officers with more firepower than previously believed. So, yeah, let me share that article with you. And I seen this on CNN, I think it was last night. I just think it's really sad that we can't get the straight story from a police, you know, a police center. So, yeah. So let me see here. Go back to my live stream here. But here's an article that talks about some of the first images out of the Uvalde shooting here. So click that link in the chat room. So if you want to check that out, feel free. But here it is. It says Uvalde, Texas. On Monday, KVUE and its news partners of the Austin American Statesman exclusively obtained surveillance footage from inside Robb Elementary School on the day of the May 24th shooting. The footage shows multiple cops who were inside the building and at least one ballistic shield, 19 minutes after the gunman arrived. They didn't enter the classroom. The shooter was inside for nearly another hour. So, this says, investigators believe that this will prove to be a significant development as it indicates that they had more than enough firepower and protection to enter the room before they actually did. Authorities have since developed their most extensive timeline yet since the shooting, in which an 18-year-old armed with an AR-15 walked into the school, killing 19 students and 2 teachers. Much of this new info is expected to be presented at a Texas Senate hearing on Tuesday, the first of 2 consecutive days at the Capitol where members of the police can address lawmakers, or the members of the public can address lawmakers. The May 24th response by law enforcement has been under heavy scrutiny since the Texas DPS revealed that officers waited more than 70 minutes to confront the shooter, even as trapped students called 911 for help. According to the latest timeline here, officers ultimately breached that room around 12:50 p.m. and the shooter entered at 11:33 p.m. or a.m. The Statesman reports that authorities have reconstructed the events of the attack using footage from inside the school, which showed the gunman entering a rear door, walking to the classroom, and immediately opening fire before barricading himself. This timeline was also built using body cam video from more than a dozen officers inside that school. Based on the newest info, it is believed that 11 cops entered the school within 3 minutes of the gunman. District Police Chief Pete Arredondo reportedly called a landline of the Uvalde Police Department at 11:40 a.m. for help. Quote, quote, he says, "It's an emergency right now," he said. "We have him in the room. He's got an AR-15. He shot a lot. They need to be outside of the building prepared because we don't have firepower right now." He said it's all pistols. He did not have a radio on him at the time. So the head man that was supposed to oversee this, he did not have his phone on him at the time. At 11:44 a.m., body cam footage then detects more shots from the gunman. At 11:52 that morning, an officer with the first ballistic shield enters the school, and other officers grow more impatient as body camera footage shows. You could hear one of them say, "If there's kids in there, we need to go in there." And it says, get down here past these little ads here. It says, based on body cam footage, it is believed that Arredondo was trying to find the keys to open the class, even though officials say they do not believe officers tried to open the door. At 12:03, an officer with another shield enters the school, followed by a third 2 minutes later. New info also suggests that Arredondo also attempted to communicate with the gunman, asking whether he could hear him. About a half an hour before breaching the classroom, Arredondo is heard wondering aloud whether officers should consider shooting the suspect through the classroom windows. Then at 12:46 p.m., the timeline shows that Arredondo told SWAT that had arrived that they should breach the classroom door as soon as they were ready. At this time, medical personnel had arrived and they began tending to the children after the suspect was dead. According to the agenda this week's hearings, there is no mention of limiting access to firearms. Republican lawmakers have insisted that gun restrictions are not on the table. Again, they're still saying gun restrictions are not on the table. Also on Tuesday, the city of Uvalde will discuss granting a leave of absence from future council meetings to Councilman Arredondo. To read the Statesman's full report, you can click on the link in the article. So, yeah. I'll have to see if there's full footage on the interior of the school, but I don't know. But I've already shared the article with you, so if you want to go down through and read that article, you're more than welcome to. Let's see what else they're saying about Uvalde today. Let's see here. Uvalde. Come on. Oh, God, I can't believe this shit. Okay. Let's see. Officers could have stopped Uvalde school shooter 3 minutes after he entered. Okay. Oh, here's something that I think you need to know. Let's see. Texas shooting, the Texas school, it says here, Texas shooting, school in Uvalde where 21 were killed will be demolished, says the mayor. Mayor Don McLaughlin said you can never ask a child to go back or teacher to go back at that school ever. And it says here, the elementary school in Texas where a gunman killed 19 kids and 2 adults will be demolished, according to the local mayor. Don McLaughlin told a council meeting in Uvalde on Tuesday that it was his understanding that Robb Elementary School would be razed and a new school built in its place for its nearly 600 pupils after the tragedy at the end of May. My understanding, and I had this discussion with the district superintendent, is that that school will be demolished. You can never ask a child to go back or teacher to go back in that school ever, McLaughlin said. McLaughlin did not say when demolition might go ahead. The school in Sandy Hook, where 26 people were killed in a mass shooting in 2012, was demoed and a new school built on the site. The mayor's comments came amid public anger about the police response in the shooting on the 25th of May and how heavily armed officers waited for 70 minutes after arriving at the school before they stormed the classroom where the shooter was holed out. Speaking at a state hearing about the incident, Steve McGraw, Texas public safety chief, called the police response an abject failure and anti-ethical to everything known about police response in such crises. McGraw said that local cop police Pedro Pete Arredondo, who was the on-scene commander, held back the officers when stopping the intruder. And it says that Mr. Arredondo decided to place the officers' lives over the lives of the kids, McGraw said. So, yeah. The officers had weapons. The children had none. The officers had body armor. The children had none. The officers had training. The subject had none. An attorney for Arredondo did not immediately respond to a request for comment. Of course not. We'll talk about that in a minute. McLaughlin on Tuesday challenged some of McGraw's testimony. The mayor said officers from the McGraw agency were also on scene, and the public safety chief was covering for them. Meanwhile, the Texas State Senator Roland Gutierrez on Wednesday said they sued McGraw's department in hope of forcing the agency to release records detailing the particulars of the law enforcement response on the day of the shooting. 21 were killed and another 17 were wounded then. So over 30 people were wounded. So, yeah. Gutierrez said his lawsuit is aimed at a short circulating misinformation and outright lies from officials whose public statements about the massacre at Robb have evolved as time has passed. The state of Texas failed 21 of them, their families and countless others touched by the tragedy, Gutierrez said. We must not fail these families again with cover-ups and misinformation. The outpouring of angst about the Uvalde massacre, along with outrage at the racially motivated murders of 10 Black people, also in Buffalo, New York. This happened, I think, about a week after the massacre in Buffalo. So it says it has led to another push for some kind of federal gun control legislation. On Tuesday, U.S. senators announced an agreement on a gun violence bill, which would toughen the background checks for the youngest firearms buyers, requires more sellers to conduct background checks and beef up penalties on gun traffickers. It would also disperse money to states and communities aimed at improving school safety and mental health initiatives. So, yeah, I'd say the police failed those kids. You're proud of your state, you better start showing it. And you failed those little babies. Here's another article for you to read. But they said 21 people were killed and 17 more were injured. And Robb Elementary will be torn down, but they don't know when that will be. I think it's just pathetic that the head man that was supposed to oversee saving those kids absolutely failed. He was a liar. They need to fire him. I stand with the parents on this one. If you're not going to do the job that you are trained to do, that you are hired to do, you put your life on the line for the people that you are supposed to protect and serve. That is a swift miscarriage of justice for the little ones and for the two teachers. And let's not forget the husband who dropped over dead just days after he loses his wife. He goes to Robb Elementary to leave flowers and memorialize her. He gets home, and later he has a massive heart attack. And I think he and his wife were buried on the same day. So, yeah. Think about that. It not only affected the children of the school, it affected any teachers that were there that day, any other little ones that were there that day. There were some that went home without their relatives. There were brothers and sisters and cousins going to school together. And a lot of the older community that has now grown up had went to that elementary school. But word has it that school will be torn down and a new school will be built in its place. So let's see what else they're saying about the Texas shooting before I get off here. Let's see. DPS husband of murder Uvalde teacher knew she was shot, dying. When he tried to help, he was detained. Yeah, and that's another thing I want to talk about here. I heard about some of the parents going down to Robb Elementary trying to rescue their babies. And that's what mother bears and father bears do. They want to love and protect their children, even if it means putting their own ass on the line to save their children. I heard about all the yelling and the screaming, do something, go in there and help save our kids. One of them says, give me a gun, I'll put my ass on the line and save my kids. But some of them were detained and made to feel like they were the criminal. If anybody, Mr. Arredondo and those coward cops that stood outside that door that day, they should be arrested. They should be charged. They should be charged with dereliction of duty. And they should have murder or manslaughter put on their record. Because if you're going to be a cop, you have to train for anything. Whether it's helping people at a fire or helping people at a school that is being attacked. You have to train for anything and everything. If you ain't willing to do that, get yourself another job. And the fact that Arredondo lied when he said there was nobody there with tactical gear, they could have went in there. Sure, they could have shot through the windows. But what good would that have done? What good would that have done? They waited 70 minutes after that moron went into the school and opened fire. He not only killed 19 students and 2 teachers, he tried to annihilate his grandmother over a fucking cell phone bill. This punk ass that did the shooting that day was telling somebody from overseas, I think it was Germany, saying, I'm going to shoot my grandma. You know, they have text messages from this bastard. He said, oh, my grandmother's on the phone with AT&T. He said, I'm going to shoot my grandma. And then not long after that, he says, I just shot my grandma. I'm going to go shoot up a school. I could tell you one thing. I'm glad that punk is shot dead. And if you want to look back at how fucked up he is, they need to check out his mother. Because they interviewed her, even though I don't speak Spanish. They translated her words. She said, and I quote, he had his reasons for doing so. And I want to say right now, there is no reason, no fucking reason at all that he should go to a school and kill innocent little kids who are just trying to get their footing in the world. You know, second, third, and fourth graders. All they have to do is worry about their homework during the week and have time together to play on the weekends. That's all they need to worry about. But no, now parents have to worry about whether their kids are going to come home alive. And I hope they fire this so-called police chief. He's shit. He's garbage. And again, if that was my niece and she died, it would be the end of me. It would be the end of me. And I think the one student they showed on TV was disabled. I'm not sure what other disabilities she had, but it's sad. You know, one girl said, I watched all my classmates die. One young man said, I watched all my friends die. That's not a good way to remember your early years. No. Kids at that age in the second and third grade are making handprints in dough and doing like little projects like their ABCs and 1, 2, 3s. You know? But now they have to worry about whether they're going to die. And the one teacher who tried to save his students, the one that lost his entire class, you know, I think he said I think somebody said they weren't going to go back and teach anymore because he didn't feel that he could teach to the best of his ability because of what happened. And it makes me sad. It really does. More and more people are leaving the teaching profession because of what's going on. So you still don't think there's a problem there, Republicans? Come on. I've never had a gun. I will never own a gun. My father owned one, but he never had it loaded. So, yeah. My sister owns one, but she keeps it locked up. She only takes it out when she travels. You know? But stupid idiots like that young man who got that gun when he turned 18, you know, they don't need to be having guns at 18 years old. If they have any thought of doing any damage to anybody, if they so much as say it, they don't deserve to have a weapon. They don't deserve to have a weapon at all. Makes me sick. And then I remember hearing a story about a YouTuber that had this fascination with the show Danny Phantom, saying that he may have been gay and all this other stuff, and how he wanted to be like the ghost girl that was on that show. You know, and he would make up fake profiles on Twitter or Facebook, and he would communicate as those characters. He worked at a grocery store doing the stock and everything. One night he wasn't working, but he was like scoping the place out, making sure that exits were blocked so that people couldn't leave. He killed some of his co-workers, and then the coward killed himself. Again, I think part of the problem is parents think that their children are okie dokie, but they don't check their actions. They don't check their movements online. They don't check their movements in public. They don't check with coworkers. Has my son been acting weird to you? Has my daughter been acting weird to you? There's too many people having too easy access to guns. And I've been following a lot of these shootings over the last several years. The Santa Monica shooter, the one that shot up people at Santa Monica College, had a notice from the state of California that he was not to have any weapons of any kind. But again, the ghost gun situation, that's another thing that needs to be rectified. People can buy gun parts online. No questions asked. None. They could go on, and if they have the mental fortitude to put together such a weapon, they do that. And then recently, I heard about a case of Dan Brophy, who was tragically murdered at his cooking school over 4 years ago. All because Daniel Brophy's wife wanted to have romance and adventure. She took out at least 10 policies on the guy, drained his money, and for her so-called, she was a insurance person, and before that, she had her own catering company. Then she went to work for insurance, and then she was writing so-called romance novels. And she had 10 policies out on Mr. Brophy. And she went to Oregon cooking school and shot him in the back as he was preparing to get stuff set up for class and make coffee for the students so they could get their morning joe in the morning. She shot him in the back. The bullet went through his back and hit his heart. And then when he turned around, she shot him in the heart, and he was dead. So 4 years later, they had a big trial on the bitch, and she got sentenced to life in prison with the possibility of parole in 25 years. She is 72. So she'll be way over 90 by the time her old ass gets out of jail. And they had impact statements from various members of the cooking school, and his own son got up on the stand and made one hell of a statement. And he ended it with, he says, "And you're the wrong wife," stealing a line from one of her own books. So, yeah. So if you don't think we don't have a problem with ghost guns, and she said she found some sort of an article that had all the links to these gun sites. So she said, I had all these things for inspiration for my books. Night vision goggles, she mentioned. Handcuffs, fur-lined handcuffs, all kinds of weird shit. And I've never heard of an author before or since that bought gun parts for a book research. Nope. I've never heard of Stephen King doing such a thing. I've never heard of any other author before or since to do such weird shit. Check out the channel Dreading. They have all kinds of mystery stories about murder and crime. So yeah, Nancy Brophy was one of those cases. I think she had illusions of grandeur. I think she saw Mr. Moneybags, because whereas she was a spender, her husband was not. And the only thing he really bought that was really important to him was stuff for cooking, like pans and different things, and he tended a garden. But she wasn't happy with any of that. But Nancy Brophy wound up killing her chef husband. And some 4 years later, they did a 25-day trial, which I have on my other channel, and I'll be sure to share that with you here in the future. She got 25 years. She got over 100 years with a possibility for parole at 25 years. And if the police are smart, they need to keep her in after 25 years. Because once a killer, always a killer. Because, from what I heard from one of the culinary students that gave her impact report, she goes, I have to see those sad green eyes of his because he saw his killer. And as I've said, I've never heard of anybody in the author field buying instruments of murder for a book project. Never heard of it before or since. So, yeah. So, as I close this video out, I still say this country has a problem. It's not just in my state. It's not just in Texas. We have a severe pandemic of gun violence in this country, and we need to nip it in the bud. I don't want to see another child die. I don't want to see another person die because if you look at them wrong, they will kill at will. That is how I feel about it. And if you're thinking about killing someone, you should go to jail. I heard they netted a 10-year-old for making a threat. And how people are pissed that they showed the kid's face and he in handcuffs being put in the back of a police car. And I'm thinking, no, if you so much as make a threat, you need to see the face who's doing it. You need to see the face of who's doing it. And I think they need to start really keeping an eye on your kids. That's one thing. If there's one thing that parents can do for their kids is look out for their safety, whether it's in public or online. If you see any material that is disturbing to you, you need to do something about it. Don't let it fester and fester and fester. I think Miss Klebold learned that lesson when her son Dylan took part in the shooting at Columbine. Because she said, if it were me today, I would go through that room. Because she thought since he was old enough, she didn't have to search his room. But there's one question. Was the girl that helped them get those weapons ever arrested? Was she ever charged? Never did hear anything more about that. But if you notice any strange things on your child's posts, whether it's Reddit, YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, whatever website they're on, you monitor their online presence. If they're having any thoughts of violence, if they're writing it down, then you need to check it out. But I'm hoping that the head man down there in Uvalde gets fired. Because it is just absolutely deplorable about how he failed those little babies. They were just starting their futures. Some of them were getting ready for maybe like the year before they go to middle school. They're like, oh, I'm going to be going to middle school. It's going to be a little different than elementary school. And I have so much to look forward to in my future. But those 19 kids will not have a future. Those 19 kids will not have a future. The 2 teachers will not have a future. They'll never be grandmas. And just think, the husband of one of those teachers keeled over dead because the stress was too much for him. And he leaves behind children. So think about that. And as to the attack on the Capitol, I think Donald John Trump and his cronies need to be charged and put in jail. Especially Rudy Giuliani. Are you kidding me? And if you go to CNN right now, they are talking about the school massacre. Angry parents demand resignation of school district police chief. So, and it says here, Ben Crump is on TV. Senate advances most significant gun legislation in over 30 years. I don't have the sound on because I don't want it to interfere with the video here. So go to CNN or your local news media for any further information. I'll be sure to share the Midas Touch here on my channel when I do my next live stream, which will probably be this evening if it's not storming. But like I said, I've been having power problems here. So I'll talk to you all later. I'm going to get on my, Buffalo shooting victims. One of them was an 86-year-old woman going to the grocery store, doing things that all of us do. Gun safety legislation includes funds for school safety, mental health, and state crisis intervention programs. But yet you don't hear anything about legislating ghost guns. You know, you need to really start looking into your kids and what they're doing. That goes for people at work, too. I think about, there's another case that really needed looking into long before this. I'm sure you remember the case of the WDBJ journalists that were killed on air at Smith Mountain Lake by a former employee. And seeing the picture of that guy's apartment, it was bare bones. There was nothing. You know, he had illusions of grandeur. He had pictures of himself all over parts of the apartment. He had no sheets on the bed, no real furnishings to speak of. And yet, he was just like Donald Trump. He sent manifestos to people that he thought treated him wrong. You know, and it's just absolutely horrible. But we'll talk about that another day. But if you want to look up the case of the WDBJ 7 shooting, look it up on Google, look it up on YouTube. Maybe somebody will talk about it. But I'm hoping to put together a comprehensive video about the shooting at the Capitol, and maybe one for Uvalde, but I don't know. I'll let you know when the school is raised. I'm hoping they'll do it soon. I don't want to have neighbors having to look at that building. You know, they look at that building and they say, that's where 19 kids and 2 teachers died. You know, but as I close this video out, be sure to tune in to the committee broadcasts here. I think tomorrow is another one. But I'll go to Midas Touch over the course of tonight and put together a comprehensive list for you. I'll even show PBS, and I think I'll do CNN because they have at least 3 or 4 days of testimony up. But I follow Midas Touch because we can talk about it and we can sort through what needs to be done. And again, if the Department of Justice does not prosecute Trump or his cronies, then our country's in trouble. Because we could have lost our democracy that day. You know, and there are some states that won't allow abortions. Taking away women's rights is one thing. Roe versus Wade is in danger of going away. I'm just so glad I never had kids. I'm so glad my parents didn't live to see that mess in January. Are you kidding me? My dad would be spinning in his grave. He was a proud Air Force man. You know, and he would be very sad to see that many kids have died over the last 10 to 15 years due to gun violence. Shouldn't have had to happen. In fact, I think they said a 20-plus-year-old woman was killed outside of a cooling center here in my city of Columbus. So, yeah, and I think they caught one of them, you know. I think one of them was a 15-year-old punk who took part in the shooting, killing one person. So, you still don't think we have a problem? Then you're part of the fucking problem. I'm out. I'll talk to you later. I got to get on my original channel and do a video like this over there. So I'll talk to you later. Be safe. Keep cool. Check on your neighbors. And keep clean. I'm only doing this because I actually give a damn about you and our future and where it's headed. Good night, everybody. I'll talk to you later.